Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fireside Chats with Father Zarse. So we now find ourselves having entered into the three holiest days of the year, the sacred Triduum. We are now transitioning into Holy Thursday and then Good Friday and finally Easter Sunday. But tonight I want to challenge you in a particular way in the midst of everything else that you've got going on during this very strange lockdown season to be considering what the significance of Holy Thursday, what it means as Catholics, what it means to us. And so I have these props that are here on the table with me. What we believe as Catholics is that caught up in Holy Thursday, in the upper room with Jesus and his apostles, was the institution of the Eucharist, the institution of the Mass, and also the priesthood. So this is really caught up in these scenes. Holy Thursday, Good Friday with the Passion, Death of Jesus, and the priesthood. These are all tied together for Catholics, and we understand them as flowing out of the events of Holy Thursday. So what I want you to consider with me for a moment is, before we get started, the last deadly sin that we have in our list is sloth. So sloth is a kind of laziness, it's a kind of sluggishness, it's a kind of procrastination. I'm avoiding what I should be focused on, and I'm distracting myself with something else. We want to avoid the deadly sin of sloth during these three holiest days of the year. In a very particular way, we want to be entering in from the comfort of our own home to Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday, and being vigilant on what we are celebrating during these days, rather than stepping into a kind of laziness or sluggishness or being procrastinators by doing something other than focusing on the holiest mysteries of our faith. So with that being said, stepping into Holy Thursday. So if you and I had been there that night with the apostles, with Jesus, there would have been 4 cups, 4 chalices that would have been assembled that night. Because for over 1,000 years, whenever the Jews would celebrate the Passover liturgy, there would always be 4 cups. So there was first the cup of Kaddish, then there was the second cup, the small Hallel, then there was the third cup, which was the cup of thanksgiving, and finally there was the 4th cup, the cup of consummation. There would have been 4 chalices assembled that night at Holy Thursday. So with the first chalice would have come the cup of Kaddish, and there would have been bitter herbs that they would have consumed with the chalice. And the reason that they did this in Jewish culture during the Passover liturgy was to remember, right? It was a remembrance of the bitter years of slavery for over 400 years in the land of Egypt. With the second cup, the second chalice, this was the small Hallel. One of the apostles with Jesus would have read Psalm 113, and that would have chronicled everything that happened as they were delivered from the land of Egypt. And then there would have been a second chalice that they consumed. Then there was the third chalice, and this is very significant because it was the third chalice. Jesus took unleavened bread and he added something to the liturgy that was never a part of the Jewish Passover feast before. He took the bread and he said, "This is my body." That had never been spoken before. And then he took the chalice and he said, "This is my blood, the sign of the new covenant. Do this in memory of me." And with those movements, he added something new to the liturgy, to the Passover liturgy. And no one had the authority to do this, with one exception, God. So as Catholics, part of what we see here, Jesus was ordaining his priests, the apostles, in the upper room on Holy Thursday. He was instituting the Eucharist, the third cup, the cup of thanksgiving, the cup of blessing. That's what the Eucharist, that's what the word means. Blessing and thanksgiving. We see all of this caught up in Holy Thursday. But notice what happens next. Then they get up and they leave the upper room without consuming the 4th cup, which was the cup of consummation. That came on the next day from the cross. Remember, one of the 7 words that Jesus spoke from that cross, he said, "I thirst." And one of the soldiers hearing this took a reed of hyssop. He placed that in some wine And then he brought it up to the lips of Jesus. And after tasting the wine on the reed of hyssop, he said, "It is finished." Now, interestingly enough, in the Old Testament, whenever they would offer these sacrifices of these unblemished lambs, they would always take the blood of the lamb and they would sprinkle it on the altar using a reed of hyssop. So we see this as a prefigurement of Jesus, who is the true Lamb of God, who is the one who has come to fulfill the Jewish Passover feast. He receives this fourth cup with the reed of hyssop. He receives it as the altar once received the blood from the unblemished lambs, the reed of hyssop. So we see this, all of this is fulfilled in the the Passover liturgy is fulfilled in the sacrifice of the Mass, in the sacrifice of the priesthood, and in the sacrifice of Calvary with the death of Jesus. The fourth cup, the cup of consummation, is consumed. So these are some of my thoughts on Holy Thursday. But to conclude, that's a lot of high theology. Those are a lot of really complicated thoughts, which may be difficult to kind of sink your teeth into, and I totally understand that. I want to leave you with one more thought from Holy Thursday. Jesus, he begins to wash the apostles' feet. So that would have been disgusting, right? That would have been something that no master, no rabbi has ever done before. You don't get on your knees and you don't clean filth and grime and grit from the toes of your disciples. If anything, it should be the other way around. They should be the one washing your feet as the master. Not so with Jesus. So I want to challenge you, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, children with your parents. How can we live in imitation of Jesus? How can we get down? How can we lower ourselves, humble ourselves to the point of washing the feet, right? The grit, the grime, the filth that makes up whatever may be going on in the home by way of the chores, by way of just anticipating each other's needs. What can I do to lower myself just as he did, to care for those that I love? That is the last challenge that I have for you on this Holy Thursday. So we will continue tomorrow on Good Friday with a look at the last 7 words of Jesus from the cross before his passion and death. This is Father Zarse signing off from my heart to yours, from my home to your home on this Holy Thursday. God bless you.